When I was very young, my parents ran a company dedicated to puppetry from all over the world. Chinese shadow puppets are some of my oldest friends. Imagine my luck when I heard Beijing has its own shadow art hotel. This hotel was originally a traditional Chinese courtyard situated in the narrow Hutongs of the Shichahai area, now a popular tourist district in the city centre. Not too long ago, it was renovated and redesigned into a cozy hotel. Dave, the son of the hotel owner, told us its history.
这个酒店的前身其实是一座寺庙，在文革的时候，后来政府给它改做了一个民房。 然后我们从政府那边买下了这种长期使用权。起初选择这个文化的时候，我们就知道，只有文化才能凝聚人心。皮影这个文化，它能有这种提供这种平台与客人交流、与客人互动。
Mao Zhongbo is the resident performer for this hotel, which offers 3 evening shows every week. People call him Mao Mao for a nickname. He started this career at 19 and has been performing for 16 years. He learned from a famous master in the shadow art field and once worked in a troupe. He finally settled here, a perfect studio for creation and display. Shadow art performance was one of the most popular forms of entertainment in ancient China, but more recently, most Chinese people would rather go to multiplex cinemas and grand concerts. Very few troupes can survive in Beijing if they specialize in shadow art performance. If this continues, maybe the future for this amazing art form lies in museums of culture. But fortunately, this hotel offers a permanent home that's far superior to any museum at keeping art alive.
How do I do this? So these two?
这是五根杆子是吧？就是2个人演，然后我帮你拿这个。
It looks easy to make this puppet move, but it's actually very hard to fully control it. It requires the performers to cooperate well with each other. Like ballroom dancing, one must follow the other's steps exactly. This puppet is the Monkey King, a famous role in Chinese culture. He's supposed to fight, fly, and turn a somersault on the screen. Quite a challenge for me. Mao Mao is a humble and warm-hearted teacher. He's very happy to teach the tourists who are really interested in his art.
之前刚学那会儿，没觉得说这个以后要从事这个行业。随着时间一年一年的过去，然后自己对这皮影的感情也是一点一点的加深，到现在就是有点脑袋里走火入魔了一样，就是离不开皮影，邮票啊，就是各种跟皮影有关的东西我都会去买。基本上大部分的那个工资啊，或者是也好，就是都花在了这个皮影身上。
Traditional Chinese themes run throughout this hotel and the surrounding streets. But by the bar, you can try a selection of continental wines. So it's no surprise that over 80% of the customers are from overseas.
Only 2 years old, the Shichahai Shadow Art Performance Hotel has become one of the most popular hotels among international tourists in Beijing. It seems the traditional art that many Chinese people consider old-fashioned is on the contrary quite fascinating to people from overseas. In order to serve international customers well, the hotel has hired a general manager from abroad who fully understands the needs of the customers.
The hospitality industry is becoming more and more competitive, and you need to find something very interesting for the guests to stay over here. And I think when you do something like this, when you involve very famous Chinese art, and you provide this kind of facility to the guest, actually you stand out from the competition.
外国人的话会对这种文化，中国这种非传统文化会更感兴趣一些，所以我们能设想到，我们将自己定位为以外国人偏居多，所以我们觉得聘请外国经理的话，能给外国人提供更好的服务。
The hotel only has 25 rooms. Although November is not the peak tourist season for Beijing, it was full almost every day. I was a little surprised to find so many Western snacks in the room. Even living deep in the Hutongs, neighbouring with local Beijingers, you can still have the comforts of home.
And if you want your very own private viewing platform, you can see the shadow art performance from here. Of course, it's a very different experience at night.
Most tourists are out and about during the day, and the hotel is very quiet. In fact, you could have quite an enjoyable afternoon just sitting here beside the window and escaping the hustle and bustle of the big city. When the staff told me a business traveller once moved to this hotel from the Hilton, I couldn't believe it. But then they explained, besides the antique style, the close interaction among people also appeals to many tourists. The inviting main hall provides a natural opportunity for travellers from all over the world to exchange their experiences. Even if you just stay in your own room, your eyes could meet with the people living opposite. Worry about privacy? Well, you can keep the window shut to avoid that. But this is actually the original accommodation concept of the Chinese traditional courtyard, which the designers of the hotel wanted to preserve. What better way to meet new people or become better friends than by living in a place built for a community? Royalty once lived in Shichahai, located just to the north of the Forbidden City. In ancient times, princes and princesses would move there after they had outgrown living with their parents. After the imperial dynasties, different kinds of celebrities and intellectuals moved in and out, and Shichahai continued to attract extraordinary people to its community. After the Cultural Revolution, the Communist Party took power and common citizens moved in. Large mansions were transformed into schools or military office buildings, while the small houses were crowded, several families often sharing just one. Walking through the Hutongs makes me feel closer to Beijing life. It's like traveling back in time to see how Beijing used to be. Very different indeed from the modern image Beijing often presents. As winter sets in and it's getting dark earlier, the tourists flock to more urban areas of Beijing. Very few tourists are still wandering around the Hutongs, but some delightful restaurants and bars are waiting for their next guests. In the Shadow Art Performance Hotel, the most important thing is turning up. 3 days a week, the hotel offers evening shows. Shadow art performance includes shadow puppetry, in which the puppeteers skillfully control the figures made of intricately cut leather and sing a story. Long ago, not only did the troupes offer regular shows, but they were also summoned to play at lavish parties of the rich. For the children, shadow puppetry was an especially creative way to play house. In old times, windows were covered with paper instead of glass, and they made perfect screens for children to tell their stories based around their favorite figures. In recent years, this unique art has been replaced by modern entertainment systems and plastic toys. Shadow puppetry is only brought back to life when it's shown in famous films or TV shows. For example, in the year 2000 there was a TV series called The Palace of Desire, set in the Tang Dynasty's imperial court, wherein the emperor, prince, and princess play with shadow puppets as a pastime. It was the perfect platform for the characters with romantic interest to express their affection implicitly by using flirtatious scripts. In 1994 To Live, the leading role Xu Fugui is a shadow art enthusiast from the countryside who picks up his puppets at every given opportunity. Even after being forced into battle, he would perform for his ecstatic comrades, using a piece of ragged cloth as a screen. For a time, these films reminded the Chinese audience of the charm of shadow puppets. But when the films become outdated, the shadow puppets are left in the corner again. It seems that in the modern theatrical world, the shadow puppet is struggling to find an audience as committed as Xu Fugui's. But this hotel has won quite a number of returning customers because of its distinguished combination with shadow art.
When I came to this place and I was very impressed, and I told the boss already, which she is also very particularly, very passionate about the ancient Chinese art, especially shadow art. And for me, actually, I don't know about shadow art, but I know one thing actually, that this is fantastic medium, and this is a trend actually which I think many boutique hotels will take. The experience that the hotel provides becomes the most important part.
This hotel plays an important role in nurturing shadow art by attracting enthusiasts from all over the world, bringing this scattered niche audience together. For one puppeteer who has persistently promoted this art, even through its decline in popularity, this hotel has been crucial to his livelihood. He decided to work there in a heartbeat.
19岁开始正式学习这个皮影戏的表演和制作，98年到现在我16年吧，大概。我到这里来一看，觉得这个环境啊，会让中国这个皮影戏，让全世界的人都可以看到这个中国的这个文化，然后我就决定说在这工作。
Tonight's show is about the battle between a red-crowned crane, a turtle, and a frog. Mau Mau had a very different life when he worked in the troupe. Now his partners are the managers of this hotel, who all became his apprentices after they met. Although Mau Mau has received his fair share of applause and appreciation on this stage, sometimes he still faces an empty hall, just like today. But that has little influence on him. He and his team perform as scheduled, as if the hall was filled with dozens of eager spectators. On this modest stage, surprise and disappointment take turns to end each day. This hotel has accepted a special mission to revive shadow puppetry, and for them, it's worth the occasional empty hall to be given the opportunity to perform to those tourists who are really passionate about the art.
Shadow play is an ancient traditional folk art in Beijing that uses puppets behind a screen to tell stories with the help of voiceover and local music. Larry Reed, born in 1945, is a famous performance director in America. He's also the originator of the combined art of shadow play and modern dance.
Shadows have always appealed to me. I remember being really small and falling asleep in the woods and waking up under a leaf and looking up and seeing the shadow of a bug on the leaf and just watching it for hours.
For Larry, a shadow play is like a primitive film. Behind the scenes, it's the puppeteer who plays all the characters. This month, Larry will bring his understanding of the art and 50 years of experience to a Chinese audience. A brand new performance of the classic episode, The Spider's Cave from the Journey to the West, will be performed at the Shichahai Shadow Play Theme Hotel, which is the first quadrangle hotel featuring shadow plays in China.
I try to keep the tradition as traditional as possible, as much as I can, and then have freedom to experiment with the new form. I'm also really happy when people take some inspiration from what I've done and bring it some new direction that fits with their personality.
This new show will set many records. It will be the first shadow play produced in cooperation between China and another country in design, direction and performance, the first shadow play all in English, and the first performed on stage in a small hotel theatre. Larry Reed is an internationally recognized theatre artist who's a trailblazer in the form of shadow theatre. Larry has introduced new forms into shadow theatre by incorporating American theatre and film styles with traditional shadow theatre techniques. He has studied and performed shadow theatre for 2 decades. He produces, writes and directs, and has made films in Mexico, Indonesia, Colombia and the US. His recent plans include projects in Thailand, Japan and China.
Before I came to China, I spent a lot of time in Indonesia. I studied shadow theater there, starting when I was about 25, which is quite a while ago. And I spent about 20 years going back and forth between San Francisco and Indonesia in order to learn more and more about shadow theater. Then, after a long time in Indonesia, I decided I wanted to learn something about the rest of Asia. So I went to Thailand for a while. I did some projects in Taiwan, and then Japan and China.
I was born from the fire of love. I am Ainu Nakuru. My father was the thunder. My mother was a giant elm tree.
I have a long relationship with shadows themselves, and when I discovered that there was a theater form using shadows, it became very interesting to me. I like it because partly it's like the original movie. It's like cave paintings come to life, and I think that's very interesting.
Shadow puppetry is considered the oldest form of puppetry in the world. It began thousands of years ago in China and India. In China, the shadow plays depict folk tales and legends of the past, many based on Chinese opera themes. In Indonesia, shadow plays are an integral part of traditional culture. The plays are taken from 2 religious epics where there is often a struggle between good and evil.
There's a technical difference which has to do with how the sticks are arranged on the puppet. The Chinese ones come this way, and the Indonesian ones come this way. And that's a sign that this style has come originally from India, and this style comes originally from China.
Beijing has a long and rich culture with traditions such as tea culture, food and the Hutong lifestyle. All these are sources of inspiration for Larry.
I really enjoy the culture here, and I enjoy the neighborhood that we live in. The Hutong is very traditional, kind of rare at this point, but I enjoy walking around here and eating the food and meeting people. It's wonderful.
It's not Larry's first time to visit Beijing. Last year he collaborated with Master Mao Mao, a Chinese shadow puppet expert at the Shichahai Shadow Art Performance Hotel. Together, they created a bilingual performance called Journey to the West, Rescue from Spider Cave, which delighted both Eastern and Western audiences. As Mr. Reed said, it's very helpful to have so much inspiration from Chinese literature.
I'm actually very interested in Chinese literature. I'm not that well read, but I've been working with Journey to the West for quite a while, and I'm interested in the Hutong and the water margin stories. I think they're all interesting.
His latest work is a new drama based on the traditional Chinese story of the Butterfly Lovers. The Butterfly Lovers is a Chinese legend about the tragic romance between two lovers, Liang Shanbo and Zhu Yingtai. The two lovers are unable to come together, and in the end become a pair of butterflies emerging from a tomb from which they fly away together.
For one thing, I think we're doing a story that is maybe never been done in shadows before. You know, it's been done in so many different forms. I've seen 7 or 8 movies. It's been done as opera. It hasn't been done as shadows. And for another, I have incorporated some ideas from my modern shows into this show, so that the lighting system is a little bit different than a traditional lighting system.
Larry will again work with the Chinese masters. For this second collaboration, there'll be a greater understanding. With enough preparation and rehearsal, they believe there'll be great success in the final shadow puppet show.
The Chinese shadow master and I work very closely together and exchange ideas all the time. So yes, we have a lot of give and take and a lot of interesting cooperation.
In recent times, young people in China have grown more interested in modern art rather than traditional culture. Especially in Beijing, shadow puppetry has become a museum art lost to the public. People admired its delicate design and acrobatic performance, but there are few who really follow the form. But at least someone is trying to renew the people's interest in the world of shadow puppetry.
I'm trying to renew people's interest in shadow theater by bringing a slightly different approach to it, by making it flow a little bit more like a movie and less like a speech. So we'll see if it works or not.
Catch the fish, throw it on the ground to feed the earth.
I have a long relationship with shadows themselves. I like it because partly it's like the original movie. It's like cave paintings come to life, and I think that's very interesting.
This is not the first time Larry has visited this hotel. He has quite a few friends there, and all of them are crazy about shadow puppetry.
The Chinese shadow master and I work very closely together and exchange ideas all the time. So yes, we have a lot of give and take and a lot of interesting cooperation.
They exchange ideas about shadow puppetry, and Wong sometimes accompanies Larry on his travels in China. But this time, Larry has come for their new puppet show, The Butterfly Lovers.
You know, it's been done in so many different forms. I've seen 7 or 8 movies. It's been done as opera. It hasn't been done as shadows. So maybe we're bringing something new to it.
Butterfly Lovers is the best-known love story in China. It tells the story of Zhu Yingtai, who's a beautiful and intelligent young woman. During her journey to Hangzhou, she meets Liang Shanbo, a scholar from Kuaiji. Months later, when Liang visits Zhu, he discovers that she is actually a woman. They are devoted to and passionate about each other, and they make a vow of till death do us part. The joy of their reunion is short-lived, as Zhu's parents have already arranged for her to marry a man from a rich family called Ma Wensai. Liang is heartbroken when he hears the news, and his health gradually deteriorates until he becomes critically ill. He dies in office later as a country magistrate. Zhu descends into bitter despair and begs for the grave to open up. Suddenly, the grave opens with a clap of thunder. Without further hesitation, Zhu throws herself into the grave to join Liang. Their spirits turn into a pair of beautiful butterflies and emerge from the grave. They fly away together as a pair of butterflies and are never to be separated again. For the performance, Larry worked with Wong in the hotel for over 2 months. Following email correspondence on the content, Larry arrived in Beijing last month. They devote all their time to the preparation of the show.
This is, well, I think for him it was more of a challenge than for me, in the sense that it wasn't exactly a traditional shadow play. It has different elements to it. But I think he was also interested in working with those and figuring out how to accommodate them and work with them.
The story of butterfly lovers happened in the Eastern Jin dynasty of China in the year 317 AD, almost 2,000 years ago. Just as Larry mentioned, this story has been adapted in various forms except shadow puppetry.
I think it's important to go to the original sources whenever possible and to be as true to them as possible, because we're trying to bring these stories to life for a modern audience.
How to bring such an old story to new life and present it to modern audiences? Larry thought about it hard and got his own idea.
For one thing, I think we're doing a story that is maybe never been done in shadows before. I'm doing a shadow play for today's audience. I feel like it's important to have it visually interesting. For a modern audience used to film, then it's good to have the visual aspect important. So in creating the story, we tried to make it move along visually, and the words support the visuals.
The performance was a great success, but Larry has greater ambitions beyond only one show.
Right now, it may not be as interesting to Chinese people as I wish it was, and I'm always thinking about ways of changing the context. One of the jobs of a shadow master is to look to the past and bring it into the present, and so that's what we do.